Welcome to OpenMICS episode 6. For anyone who's tuning in for the first time, OpenMICS is a podcast that Jason and I have started where we talk with people involved with the University of California, Berkeley Masters of Information and Cybersecurity program about how they feel about the program, what they do in cybersecurity or are interested in cybersecurity, and just lots of cool information. So today we have a very special guest. His name is CB. I have not had any classes with you. What classes have you taken so far? How's crypto been? And how do you like the program?
So let me start by thanking you for inviting me into this podcast. I was looking forward to it when Jason first broached this to me a few weeks ago. So I was pretty excited to be a part of this. Classes I've taken so far, let's see, security in context, or whether cybersecurity in context, and the Python programming class.
Yeah.
This semester, I'm taking crypto and software security. How am I liking crypto? Well, I definitely appreciate the conceptual knowledge that I've gained from it, because otherwise I would never have, had the inclination to do any kind of research or, even study on my own. But that I find useful. The details of RSA, Diffie-Hellman, etc. So that I find useful. But from a practical standpoint, I'm not sure how relevant it is going to be. And given that I've been in cybersecurity for about, close to 16 years now, I have never had an opportunity to go down to that level of crypto. I'm sure there's going to be, there are opportunities, especially people who are trying to either break into a crypto product of some kind, or go further into some kind of a research field. So I'm pretty sure this course will be very useful. But from my standpoint, the theoretical knowledge was very useful, but at least at this stage, I fail to see how that knowledge translates into the real life work.
Fair enough.
Software security is awesome. That is real life. My only regret is that, we didn't get to spend more time learning about software security because of the amount of oxygen that crypto essentially took. So.
CB's a little humble about this, but I've had the pleasure of being in the study groups that Iulua set up. We do it 3 times a day, pretty much every day, although some of us have not been able to join all sessions. CB is really the single person who's been on all of them, who leads all of them, who helps everyone across not just crypto, but software security class. And I think when we go back to past episodes, we talk about study groups are really helpful. CB will be too humble to say it, so I have to say it on his behalf. He's been very helpful in these classes, and we're very grateful to have people like CB participating, helping out in these study groups.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Appreciate that.
Could we, so in addition to semester ramping down, I know about what you do for work. And I know that a lot of people would love to know what you do for work, how you do it. And so can we spend some time just getting started? What do you do and how do you do it?
Absolutely. Yeah, currently I'm a mobile application security researcher. It's no longer fancy to call myself a pen tester or a hacker. My official title at work is Senior Cybersecurity Engineer, but that doesn't say anything about what I do. But in my current role, I'm an offensive mobile application security analyst. So I assess iOS and Android applications for vulnerabilities. I basically do some manual testing of the applications, both that are being created internally for internal use, and also applications that are available from the App Store and the Play Store. So I'm quote unquote the last gate before the application goes into production or into the store. So that's my job. I've been doing mobile app security for, a little over a year now.
Okay.
Before that, I used to test web applications. I used to test I used to penetration test web applications. And I've been in IT in development, since 1993.
Wow.
So, I started out as a developer, but my master's was in environmental engineering. And then the company that hired me was essentially an environmental company, but they basically asked me to write some script or to basically manage some compliance requirements with the state DEP, Department of Environmental Protection. So that's how I got into software. But I had some experience writing code in C and C++ before that in my undergrad. So I said, oh, okay, let me find a package. And I started out with Power Builder. I started writing some applications because it was the easiest thing to build a graphical user interface in. So I figured, okay, let me jump in. And then that's where my journey into software and then started. And then I joined a telecom company back in 1997 or 98, maybe.
Okay.
So I've been with the same telecom company. I've started developing in Java since 1997. Been writing I wrote some desktop applications and then developed some, what was it called? Java ME, mobility or whatever. I don't even recall what that stood for anymore. So I wrote the original Java applications for handsets, the old brick handsets.
Okay.
And then again, I moved into web and then progressed from there. And then in about 2006 to 2007, I started architecting authentication and authorization, basically user management. At that time we had some very big breaches in the company that I worked for. So I was asked to start architecting authentication and authorization systems. And that's how I got into the web applications, because those applications were being used by our retail sector, our retail stores, and our dealer stores. So that's how I got into it. And then in 2009, I made a complete switch to security. When I got my CISSP certification, I made a full switch over to cybersecurity. And then again, followed through, wanted to get more technical. Then I did my CEH, followed that up with ECSA. And then, of course, last year, when I moved into mobile, I got my GIAC, SANS GIAC, GMOB, and the GASF, that's the forensic certifications. So, but that's where I am. So anything mobile, mobile security, mobile AppSec, iOS or Android, but predominantly iOS these days. So that's essentially my work, my passion. That's where I am most of the time. That was a long-winded answer. Hope that satisfied you, that gave you some insight.
Yeah, that was very interesting. I'd be curious to hear. So my exposure to the mobile application security is what we've seen in software security, which was fairly limited. But right. What would you say are the more common mistakes that a mobile development team might make that are security flaws? And are they like easy to avoid if you know they're there, or is it hard to avoid? I'm curious.
Yeah, great questions. So the one thing to understand about mobile is that most people that I've worked with, their background is also happen. They also come in from this web application security development development and or security backgrounds and network security as well. The problem is that it doesn't translate directly into mobile security because the network or the web is just a part of the mobile application stack, if you will. Because unlike the web application space, the actual app runs on a device that you own. Mm-hmm. Because in the case of a web application, it's running on a server somewhere in the corporate headquarters or in a data center, right? So you don't own it, and the only way you access it is through a web interface, which sits behind layers and layers of protection like firewalls and etc. Mm-hmm. But in the case of a mobile application, the app sits actually on a device that you personally own. So that factor is very critical in understanding the difference between mobile AppSec and web application and even a desktop application. Although mobile apps have more in common with the desktop application. The other difference between the difference between a desktop application and a mobile application is that on a desktop, you own that desktop like you own the mobile device. However, on the desktop, you pretty much are God. You have admin rights. However, on the mobile device, you don't. Unless you root or jailbreak the device, you don't get that level of access. And that's by design. So I'm trying to give you some background as to what how the mistakes tend to occur in development when it comes to mobile applications. The developers typically are also they come from a traditional background. They build they were probably building Java applications or PHP applications, things of that nature. So the one thing that that I always find in my pen test is that the keys are stored on the device in clear text. I find that pretty often. And the databases, since these are mobile applications, they contain databases. The applications contain databases that sit in that sits within the application on the device. I find that the databases are not encrypted, especially not encrypted when they contain sensitive data, because your mobile application is your digital record. So you have your entire life in a mobile device. Yeah. So the databases are not encrypted. So this is one thing that I find pretty commonly. Is it easy to fix? Yes, absolutely. But then it is a habit that the developers need to sort of get into. But unfortunately, given the rapid cycles to market, this is one thing tends to be ignored all the time. So I find this every time. I don't think I remember a single instance where a database was encrypted properly, because I've been able to extract, excuse me, I've been able to extract keys from the databases, pretty much in every one of my pen tests.
Wow.
That was. I'm sorry. What was the second question?
I think you answered my second question. I will follow up with this. So as a person who uses a phone that has apps on it, what are things that I can do that would protect my safety when I'm downloading apps?
Right.
or considering which apps to download.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. One advice that I give to everybody, in fact, I have a 18-year-old nephew, and I've gotten him phones since he was 12, 13. So it scares the heck out of me. When I started, when he started using the smartphones. So one thing I absolutely advise clients to do is to keep their devices, that's hardware, and their software up to date. You should never ever ignore security patches. If you're on Android, Android tends to not support security patches after a certain hardware model. So yes, it tends to get expensive to keep changing your devices every so often, but Android is still sort of cheaper than iOS. However, iOS has a longer support cycle, so they do update security quite a bit. Until recently, Apple used to support security patches going all the way back to 3 or 4, iOS 3 or 4. Only now they started saying that iOS 6 will not receive any updates. iPhone 6 will not receive any iOS updates for 15, things of that nature. So iOS has a longer cycle that way. Android has a much shorter cycle. And then given the prevalence of Android, there's quite a bit of penetration throughout the world. The market share for Android is overwhelmingly higher than iOS. And obviously, Android tends to be more, quote unquote, insecure compared to iOS, but Android is getting a lot better. So yeah, from your perspective, I would say the first one thing I would definitely say is to keep your device and your OS updates, current. You should never ignore updates. And then from a application installation perspective, for iOS, the good thing is that you can only get apps from the App Store. And Apple does a very good job of vetting those apps for vulnerabilities. Of course, one thing they cannot do is that they don't go down to the privacy level as much. They do, but since the code that they receive is binary and they can't reverse engineer it, and it's not their job to reverse engineer the code. There could be some privacy concerns, so you should be, you should be cognizant of that, especially if the devices are being used by, teenagers and children, etc. So you have to be cognizant. And then from an Android perspective, it's always best to get the apps from the Google Play Store. Android has alternate app stores like Amazon and APK Pure, APK Monk, etc. I would definitely avoid getting any applications from maybe Amazon may be okay at some point, but I would go to the Google Play Store first. If I don't find something, I will basically ask myself, is that app really, really needed? If not, then I will, if it is, then maybe I'll look at the Amazon App Store. But I would definitely not go to any other app store, any other Play Store for Google. So I would restrict myself to the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store to get an app from. I would never, ever advise anybody to download an app that they received in a text message or an instant message or anything like that. Absolutely not.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sure.
Could we talk about, what tools do you use as a pen tester to test these apps, and then maybe not just mobile, but a little look back, web and others, for those particularly that are curious about, well, what tools do you use? And then it'll lead into, can you tell us more about how someone skills up to become a pen tester?
Sure. Absolutely. Yep. So my main tool for pen testing is Kali.
Okay.
Kali Linux. And I run Kali in a VM. I tend to not run it on my host machine. I always tend to run it either in the VMware Fusion or VirtualBox.
Okay.
So yeah, Kali is my main, it's my golden sword. Can't live without it. And then from a scripting standpoint, Python. So there are tons of scripts that you can grab off of GitHub, proof of concepts, etc. And for testing web applications in particular, especially looking at the HTTP traffic, I use Burp Suite from Portswigger. It's called BURPSUITE. It's by a company called Portswigger in the UK. There are two editions. The community edition is free. It provides, I would say, 80 to 90% of what you need to do. And there's the paid version, which comes with a couple of extra features, like you can use it as a vulnerability scanner for web applications. And then there is another tool called ZAP, Z-A-P, stands for Z Attack Proxy. It's a free tool. It functions like Burp Suite, but the advantage of that, it is free. Then it also comes packaged with a scanner, vulnerability scanner, so that's good. I don't use that as often. Burp Suite is my go-to, only because I trained in it. I trained on Burp ZAP, so I have no. I'm not fanatical about either of those tools. I'm not taking sides on that. And then let's see. I use Wireshark extensively for non-HTTP type traffic to analyze things. And then, of course, Kali comes with a whole suite of tools. So let's see. The problem in the mobile space is that they're very specialized. So there are tons of tools to do your software composition analysis, and then static and dynamic testing scanners for your Java-based or C#-based applications. But there are tools to do. Free tools. But there are, of course, commercial tools for everything. And there are, from a mobile application standpoint, there are not that many tools that do source code analysis that are free that I'm aware of. Or maybe there are, but I haven't come across any of them. And I tend to not get the source code from the developers. When I test, I get a binary. So yeah, there are, from a scanning standpoint, the only free tool that I know of is called MobSF, Mobile Security Framework. It is a free tool.
Okay.
So it does static, and it's just mostly for static analysis. So it basically like a vulnerability scanner for mobile apps. So you just drop in an IPA or APK. IPA is the file format for an iOS app, and APK is the file format for an Android app. So you just drop it in, and it basically goes through and then gives you a report. It is very, very useful. But of course, it's a free tool, community developed. So it requires an analyst to basically scan the report and then basically weed out all the quote unquote false positives or things of that nature. And of course, since it's just a static tool, it tends to miss a lot. And it supports, from a dynamic standpoint, it does work on Android applications, and so you have to basically exercise the app. You basically install it on a virtual device like Genymotion. That's another tool I use. Genymotion is a Android virtual machine. So you can take it basically is a virtual Android device. You can basically spin up any type of Android device like Pixel or things of that nature. I think Samsung. It's basically a virtual device that runs. There is a local version, and there is also a cloud version, and the local version is free for personal use. And of course, I use the devices. I buy them off eBay for testing. And what other tools do I use? There's something called Frida for IDA. It is a dynamic instrumentation toolkit. It is a very powerful tool. It hooks into the running process in memory. These mobile applications, unlike your desktop or web applications. So as soon as you start the device, all the applications are loaded into memory. So every part of that is loaded into memory. So that's how they have to work. That's how they work. So Frida allows you to instrument those calls in memory, and then you can actually change the behavior, modify the functions. So very cool, very powerful tool. I use that. Let's see. There's something called Drozer. Drozer is, again, for Android. It basically is an app that sits on the device. It's a client-server model. It sits on the device, and then when you exercise the app that you're testing, Drozer takes this position of a third-party app to see what information that it can clean off of your application that you're testing. So yeah, quite a few tools, and of course, Burp Suite, to test out your traffic to any of the API calls that are being made, or in case of a web view, and then for binary analysis, since this application sits on the device, so it's in the binary format, you can get the binary out. Okay. So you need some kind of a reverse engineering tool. So for Android, there's something called JADX GUI, JADX GUI. So it basically tries to disassemble first and then decompile, and it gives you its interpretation in sort of Java code, because Android essentially, Android and Kotlin, they both, Java and Kotlin are the languages used for writing Android apps, and they both compile into a Java class. They compile into Java classes. So yeah, I use that. And for iOS, it's there's a tool called Ghidra disassembler. It was developed by the NSA. It is free. You can use that. And I use another tool called Hopper. It's about $100 or so per year, a license. That's specifically built for it's purpose-built for iOS apps. But the most important thing to break into mobile applications is that, unlike, again, web applications, if you know some HTTP type knowledge, you have a pretty good leg up. You can, you're pretty much on your way. You really don't have to know all that much HTML or JavaScript or what have you. But with Android and iOS, technically, you don't have to understand programming, but it is going to be extremely difficult if you can't read Swift or C, Objective-C, or a Java code. And on top of that, you need to be able to understand assembly, specifically ARM assembly, ARM assembly instructions. As I said, the mobile devices run on ARM. So you have to understand, and the ARM is different. ARM instructions are different from a typical Intel x86, x64 instructions. So you have to understand that. So otherwise, you will not be able to do any kind of reverse engineering or binary or malware analysis, for that matter, when it comes to mobile devices. So yeah, the best tool for mobile security is YouTube.
I believe it.
Yeah. Keep YouTube and there's subreddits. So, there are, as I said, there are only 2 certifications that are offered that really matter when it comes to mobile app security, and I'm certified in both of them through SANS. But it's just a week worth of classes, and then you take certification, and you may or may not pursue a job in that, but you have to constantly keep updating your skill set. And and then it is expensive. So you have to buy phones off of eBay, and then you have to learn how to jailbreak them or root them. And then once you jailbreak or root them, the warranty is no longer valid. So, you lose warranty. So if you brick it in that process, your $600 or $700 or $800 up to $1,000 is down the drain. So it can be expensive, and you need a Mac, especially if you're pen testing iOS applications. So yeah, it can be quite a bit more expensive to break into mobile application pen testing as opposed to web application pen testing. So that's why the overwhelming majority of the bug bounties are awarded in the web application space. So.
That was incredibly cool. That was super interesting to listen to. I feel inspired to go try out some of those tools. I don't know if you know about the Hack the Box meeting that happens weekly, but I would really love for you to join us some week and show us some of your stuff, because that's what that group lives for, is learning cool things like that.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, I have been on, not this group, but I've been doing Hack the Box for quite a while now, maybe
Nice.
3 or 4 years now. Yeah.
Wow.
But in fact, you know what I can do? I actually implemented a working exploit for the forced entry malware on iOS. And I actually demoed that for the software security presentation. I can actually present that if people are interested.
Yes.
It's an iOS hack that was it's an iOS spyware that was allegedly attributed to the NSO group of Israel.
Yeah.
It's spyware. So I actually was able to instrument the actual call stack, basically the exploitation of that integer overflow vulnerability that it used. So I can demonstrate that on an iOS device. I actually have a video recording of that. I can, I can definitely talk through that. So I've had enough experience now. I actually presented that at a mobile security conference back in May.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I can definitely do that. Yes.
I think that's maybe a future episode, Jonathan.
Yeah, seriously, that's so cool.
I think we'll leave it, of course, to the audience, but I'm pretty sure everyone's going to want to have another dedicated episode of just what this thing is, how it works, and basically the brain dump captured in history, captured in the video for others to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'd be more than happy to, in fact, thrilled to present that. Yeah.
I got one other thing, because it just reminded me, so kind of a different topic, but this one's totally fantastic. I might want to drill into it a little bit more. But you talked about a presentation, and I remember everything leading up to it, and then I remember you telling me about how it went. For those who are in security, you're ultimately going to probably do talks, share your experience. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that experience was like? How'd you prepare? How'd it go? Would you do these presentation things again, just to get some of that knowledge?
Great question. So there's a company called NowSecure. It's one of the it's one of the companies that's dedicated to mobile application security space. So they have a few products, and our company is a client of theirs. So I work with them quite a bit. So they invited me to join their mobile application research forum, and also if I would be interested in presenting something. So I said, yeah, and the guy who created Frida worked for NowSecure. He's a Norwegian researcher. So he works for Frida. So I said, yeah, I've been working on this exploit. I found something on YouTube. Another presenter basically, had presented this at a different conference. So, if I were to do something similar, I wouldn't get into trouble, because otherwise this is an exploit. This is still this exploit still exists in the wild. People who haven't updated their iPhones, it still exists in the wild. So I wanted to be cognizant of that, careful of that. So I said, hey, I've used Frida to instrument the call stack. I can demonstrate the vulnerability through Frida. You'd think it's a good idea. They jumped on it. They said, yes, absolutely. But that was the preparation was not all that difficult, because I had again I had already presented that in W200 as well as part of my presentation. That and also there was another Android spyware that I presented. So I said, yeah, I'd be more than happy to. This required a bit more technical details in the presentation. So yeah, I said I'd be more than happy to. Then yeah, the preparation, as I said, was not all that not all that difficult. I already had the material, so the talking points were fine, but it was nerve-wracking for me because I've never spoken in front of 100 people before in such a large auditorium. So that was nerve-wracking. I was extremely nervous, and then the day before, I actually sat in on a mobile research application research panel, and the two of them that were alongside me, on the panel with me, they were from Now Secure, and they are giants in the field of mobile application research. One of them actually revealed a Android vulnerability in the Peloton bike. And then the other person, she's the director of mobile research, mobile security research, and she was one of the first people to jailbreak an Apple Watch that was back in Apple 4. So I was extremely nervous again, but it was an incredible experience. I would do that again for sure. Absolutely do that. So yeah, but getting to that point was absolutely nerve-wracking. What if I bomb? What if this? But the Now Secure folks are very encouraging. So they kind of guided me through that process. It was phenomenal. I would do that in a heartbeat again.
That's really cool. You're really cool. I'm very much enjoying this. I feel like I've learned so much. So as we kind of wrap up our time here, we'd like to know something that you're passionate about in technology or otherwise, and a little bit about that.
Passionate about technology, I'd like to get more into the binary aspects of it. That's where my passion is, because there isn't all that. There are not that many people out there, and then there are not that many people who are interested in zeros and ones. It's way that way. But that's where my passion is. I'm trying to learn more about reverse engineering. And things like that. And not necessarily from a security standpoint, just to understand how the compiler works in basically compiling the code and how that could be reversed, things of that nature. And if I stumble upon a security vulnerability, then yeah, so be it. All better. But that's where my passion is. That's what I'm trying to focus on in my research. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And from I think one of the questions that you had asked, I missed. How would I basically keep myself up to date in terms of technology after this program?
Yeah.
Well, one thing I certainly would do is certifications. I'd look at certifications. Mm-hmm. So yeah, MICS gives you this foundational background that's kind of wide. It gives you the breadth of it. But depending on the field that you want to break into, I would look at certifications. They are incredibly useful. And they are very focused. So more than MICS, well, in addition to MICS, they can help you break into a certain area. So yeah, certifications, especially SANS, I know they are very expensive, and offensive security. And then if you're into like auditing, things of that nature, there's there's another group of certifications, CISA, the auditor, etc., and then of course CISSP. So, yeah, it helps you focus. That's what I would recommend.
Yeah. Well, I have one more question, which is probably going to be a sensitive topic, but what are classes looking like for you next semester?
Interesting, but yeah. So I have one more. Foundational course, the network security. I'm actually looking forward to it because, as I said previously, I use Wireshark. So I'm kind of looking forward to looking at analyzing the packets again. So that'll be interesting. I was hoping to, still am hoping to get into the machine learning for security class on the wait list right now. So hopefully I get in. If not, I have my plan B is to essentially do the managing security risk course.
Okay.
Which again, I used to work for, I worked as a security risk manager for about a year or so. I used to write security risk assessment. So, and that's something that I know that's something that I might do. But yeah, looking forward to the classes. But yeah, also not going to look back on crypto. It's done. So ice front.
A little celebration there. Well, I think that's a great place to stop. And part of me wonders, Jonathan, if 45 minutes is too short.
Right.
But thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, CB, learned a lot. And I think we're going to certainly look forward to a dedicated episode about the vulnerability that you were talking about, how it works, and everything else in between.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. We'd love to do it. Yeah.
So with that,
it was a pleasure.
With that,
Yeah, thanks for having me.